Hello and welcome to a new segment on my channel that I'm going to call the Common Archetypes. This will be a segment where we'll discover our power by discovering ourselves. Please, if this interests you, don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. Okay, so we're going to jump in. What is this? What are the common archetypes? Basically, these are archetypes that have been going out throughout society. The first time I was introduced to these archetypes in a way that resonated with me was from a woman here on YouTube. Her name was Aisha Fain. She has now moved on to the other side. May she rest in peace. And I was really able to resonate with how she classified this. However, after I heard her message, I went on through life. I felt like there was some gaps, and I felt like these archetypes are actually the same, but just with a different masculine and feminine pole. So this would not be her exact classification. However, I was inspired by that, and I did want to give her some shout out. So these are the common archetypes that I've just come into contact with society, and a lot of other people have. I'll try my best to explain it to you as much as I can because I can get a bit convoluted. All right. So what are these archetypes? What are they for? Where do they originate from? I personally think that all of these archetypes are across society and they've been here through the beginning of time. I don't know how long. Obviously, I'm not that old. They've been here to the beginning of time, and some societies tend to favor some archetypes over the other. As we're going to go through each archetype, I'm going to tell you which one is favored in the Western world, in the Central world, which is mostly like Africa, and in the East, because each society actually favors a particular archetype. And I'm also going to explain to you how you know if this is your archetype or the stuff you resonate with, if this is your archetype. And example, if you come across people who do embody more of this archetype, how can you navigate that situation? If it's a workplace, if it's a school, or maybe even for romance. The whole point of this series is not to put people in boxes. The whole point of this series and why I decided to start it at this moment in time was, yes, I kind of run out of life lessons, but it was mostly so that we can all find ourselves and find something to connect with. This is not to put you in a box because these archetypes really do vary. They vary by age, they vary by birth order, they vary by events that are happening in your life. Maybe you might want to take on a more assertive archetype or over a more passive and calm archetype. It really depends. As a community, as a society, and as people, we probably go through a variation of all of these archetypes throughout our lives, but there are some that are more common. There are some that are core to some folks. There are some you will always see present themselves in your life. And that is the basis of this segment, to be able to identify what are your core archetypes. And yes, I did say core archetypes because most people are a blend of multiple. There's usually 1, 2, or 3 archetypes that do take precedence in most people's lives, and all the other archetypes kind of act like a periphery. But knowing what those core archetypes are, knowing how those core archetypes show up in your life as an individual, and knowing how those core archetypes attract, how those core archetypes navigate the world, and how those core archetypes may not attract, because each archetype has a pros and a con. There's balance in the universe. In the world, there's always balance. We tend to look at the bright side of things, but there's also a dark side of stuff. And that is the same thing with these archetypes. There is a bright side and there is a dark side. And this is not to make you fearful of the dark side, but to empower you to know what the dark side of an archetype might be. Because there are times when you do need to use the dark side of an archetype to make your way in the world. You don't always have to use the bright side. It's kind of naive to think you're going to navigate the world and everyone is just going to love you and cherish you and give you what you want. No, that's not what happens. We have some people who love us and some people who hate us, and then other people who are just jealous of us for no reason. Hopefully, once you go through the series, you'll be able to identify what that might be the case. Because there are some archetypes that get along well with other archetypes, and they don't get along well with certain other archetypes. Basically, the premise of this series is for you to be able to realize what is your energy, what is your aura, how do you show up in the world as an energy source, not physically. Obviously, some archetypes are more physical than others, but the archetypes I'm trying to go towards are more of an energy base. And yes, that can translate to your style, the way you talk, your clothing, and all those stuff, and even the way you do your makeup. But it doesn't always have to be. That is why I think it's important to know what your core archetypes are. Know the strengths of those 3 archetypes. It's usually 3. Once you can identify the top 3, I think you'll be pretty good. And also know what is the weakness in all of those archetypes, because each archetype has a strength and a weakness. And how can you balance that to navigate the world, use your power, your unique power, to be able to get what you want in life? And that just varies on you. Whatever it is that you want to get in life. Some people want to be CEOs, whereas other people just want a quiet life. And other people want to live off the grid with no contact with society. So whatever you want, we're here. So just to give you a brief overview of the archetypes, like I said, there is a masculine and a feminine distinction. However, I don't want you to think of masculine and feminine in a linear situation. There's a masculine and a feminine component to these archetypes. And this is not a linear masculine and feminine. I know our society loves to think that the masculine pole is on this side and the feminine pole is on the other side. And the closer you are to masculinity, the further away you are from femininity, and vice versa. But that is not true. That is absolutely not true. The poles in these archetypes and the poles, I just think is more intuitive for me as a person, and I hope it can provide some clarification to you if you never resonated with the linear pole, because it is not true. It's this, and I hope I'm able to actually make a graphic. So these are the poles I'm referring to. It's more of a circular pole. At the top, you will see the extreme masculine version of an archetype and the extreme feminine version of an archetype. And there's a gap in the middle. That gap is to represent the balance. The balance of once you've incorporated the extreme masculine and the extreme feminine, that is, I guess in this sense, it would be considered perfection. You have reached the peak, you have reached the pinnacle of both perspective, of both the masculine and the feminine perspective, and you are there. So that is the goal. But at the bottom, this is where everyone starts. But don't think, like I said, this is a circle, as you can see. Some people might be further up on the masculine scale, while other people you can have 50% masculine, 20% feminine, or 75% feminine, 60% masculine. Don't think of it as linear, because you can really be balanced 50-50 masculine and feminine and hold space for both the masculine and the feminine energies in this archetype that I'm trying to go to. And yes, this also means if you do present as a woman, you can resonate more with the masculine pole of an archetype rather than the feminine pole of an archetype. And the same if you're a man. You might be able to resonate more with the feminine pole of an archetype and the masculine pole of an archetype. But again, like I said, it is a circular, it is not a linear distinction. It is not the more masculine you are, the less feminine you are, or the more feminine you are, the more masculine you are. They are different, but they are equal. And once you're able to embody the extremes of both, I guess you've hit the goal. I don't know anyone who has, but I'm pretty sure some people out there have. So yeah. So I'm just going to give you a brief description of what these archetypes are. What are they? We're going to start with the people at the top. This is the king and queen archetype. They usually fall under power and control. These are very powerful people. They are highly established. They can be CEOs. They are leaders in communities. And a key way to know who these people are is actually by the way they look. They are masters of the physical world. They are the people with the flashy car, the statement jewelry, or the clothes, or whatever. When you think of a king or a queen, you think of someone who is put together, responsive, all of that, right? And like I said, their power and control. Usually their goal is to build an empire. The empire can vary on whoever the person is. Because again, most people are not just one particular archetype. It's usually a blend. And usually they have a top 3 that would identify what that person is. Okay. This is the kings and the queen, power and control is the name of the game. And yeah, so the next archetype after that, this is in no particular order, and I might not follow this order when I do delve into each archetype individually because I just haven't gotten all my ducks in a row yet. Sorry. But yeah, so the next archetype after the king and queen I'll talk about are the sage. This is the masculine and the feminine sage. And these archetypes pride themselves on their knowledge, being in the know-how, networking with other people. These are usually second in command to the king and the queens. They tell the king and the queen what is happening to the world, how they are seen, their standing. Sages are really good at getting information and networking with other people. They pride themselves on their ability to have information, to be knowledgeable about something. When you think of a sage, think of knowledge. If you are still listening to this video and you have not clicked off yet, you probably have the sage archetype already active in you. That's a good distinction between sages. They love learning new stuff. They love learning new things. They love accumulating that knowledge, right? Their goal is usually to be in power. Okay. Most of the goal of a sage is to be in power or to bring forth a new idea, a new discovery, something new. Anything that has to do, the science field. It's a really good field for this. So moving on from the sage, the next archetype will be the knight and the protector / destroyer mother. I actually wanted to go with destroyer mother, but I decided to add the protection here because I feel like it's a bit more inviting. Okay. But the knight, again, think of a knight or think of the mother who's protecting her youngs, or the mother who is out there just beating people up because they're messing with her kid. And the same thing with the knight. They're very patriotic. They're very determined. They're very steadfast. They are strong. You cannot knock them down because they are strong and they are on a mission and they are going to go forth with that mission. And usually that mission involves protection. In terms of a knight, it might be protecting the nation, protecting the country. Most people who tend to be in the military and who resonate with this patriotic thing embody the knight. And the same thing with the mother, protecting her youngs, protecting her family, protecting her sisters. All of those. This is a heavy protection archetype, and it does vary from whether it is more on the masculine pole or the feminine pole. So that is the knight and the protector / destroyer mother. Since we mentioned the mother, I'm just going to go to the other part of the mother, which is the nurturing mother and the caretaker. The nurturing mother and the caretaker are exactly what you think. These are the nurturers of society. They nurture the youth. They nurture the young. They help the kids. They're usually heavy kid based. Like if someone feels like it is their duty in life to be a mother or to be a father, they probably have these archetypes. And it can come on at any age. And this is one of the archetypes also with the destroyer and protection mother. The nurturing mother and the destroyer and protection mother are also the archetypes that tend to appear in older sisters. The older sister syndrome, it is this archetype where young girls are pushed into this mother role of taking care of their siblings, taking care of their family, because either the parents are working too hard or maybe one parent is not there. Like there's some type of, I don't want to label it dysfunction, but the adults in the family are not up to par. And now the responsibility has been pushed down on the eldest daughter. It's usually the eldest daughter to mother the siblings. She's probably always the babysitter, the one taking care of them, the ones the siblings actually call on when there is a problem. So the eldest daughter syndrome is mother archetypes, and sometimes it depends on the person. She can take on the more nurturer side of the mother, or like we talked before on the destroy and protect the mother, she can be more so of you're not messing with my baby sister type of thing. But you catch my drift. But the nurture mother, she's very nurturing, caring, loving, whatever we think of mother energy. And the same thing with the caretaker. This is actually one of the male archetypes that I think society does not want to show for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's a fabulous archetype, but maybe it's just me. But I think it's a great archetype. And I have had men in my personal life who do embody this caretaker archetype of taking care of kids. It's an archetype of mentorship, of guiding the children. And they're very heavy based on both. Both of these archetypes, they love kids. They think it is their duty to be parents, to be able to raise up the next generation and to be able to nurture. They're very giving, very loving, very generous and open. And I really hope during this series I can do justice to the caretaker, because that is, I don't know, I'm a bit biased, but it is a good male archetype that I think a lot of people can embody and take on, especially men. Yeah. Even though I said this is not gender based. All right. So after this archetypes, we will go to the more childlike archetypes. Again, these are childlike archetypes, not childish. They can be a little on the childish side because, like I said, it has that bright side and that dark side. However, these are the more youthful and childlike archetype. This is the charmer and the innocent. These are just a name I've given to these archetypes. This is an archetype for daydreamers, the people who are curious. They want to know about the world. They want to know about maybe anything. That childlike curiosity that children have when they just listen to a story, like their eyes are bright, just like my eyes are bright right now. The eyes are bright. They're just listening and holding on to every word. The charmer archetype also embodies a sense of adventure and curiosity. These archetypes are very curious and they are forever learners. So anyone who considers himself to be always learning, always on the prowl, probably has one of these two archetypes active. I would venture to say that these two archetypes are probably the most common archetype in the world because they are a bit on the immature side. Yes, there is a sense of joy and wonder and fun that both of these archetypes have immensely. However, like I said, they can also be a little bit childish. They can also be a bit manipulative. They can also be, and I think a lot of people are just very immature. Okay, maybe that's just the people I'm around, but if you disagree with me, feel free to put in a comment. But these I feel like these are really the most like potent archetypes in the world because they're very immature, but they also have that sense of wonder, which I don't actually think society taps into that sense of wonder. I think most of society just taps into the immaturity of these two. So first, when I made the classification, this archetype was just the boy and the girl, but there was also another archetype that does come about in more youthful people. So I felt the need to break them up into half, into the charmer and the innocent and the rebels. And the rebel archetype, it is what you think it is. It is a rebellious person, down with society, down with the establishment, down with patriarchy. They are the change makers. They are the ones who see a problem and not only see the problem, but say the things out loud that everybody else is scared of saying because they don't want to piss off the king and the queens, who are usually at the center of society and at the center of the establishment. So these are the rebels. And the rebels are also a very youthful archetype because of their youthful energy and their vigor and their passion, how they're so passionate about this cause to the point they are willing to burn everything down, including at their detriment. However, it's a very fiery archetype. It's a very strong archetype. And I think a lot of people are about to embody this particular archetype in our society. There's a rapid change on the horizon. And I think some people know about it, but then other people are kind of like, we want to go back. There is no way. Society is not going back anymore. This is the age of the rebel. Rebels are being formed as the world is changing. There are a lot of stuff in society, both in the Western society or the Eastern society, and even in the central part of society that people do not like, and they want change. The rebels are the embodiment of change. They have ample energy, ample passion. They're dedicated to their cause. They do not care. They will burn everything down with a swoop. But this archetype can also be very terrifying. So if you do embody this rebel archetype, which like I said, there's a masculine and feminine component to the rebel. So they do show up differently in the masculine form and in the feminine form. However, a piece of advice I would give to anyone who does embody this rebel archetype, because I really feel like we're going to see more of this in the coming years, is pair this archetype with the sage, either the feminine sage or the masculine sage, or pair this archetype with the mystic or the hermit. Both of those two archetypes are going to be able to balance out your rebellious nature so that people don't just see you as chaos, but sees you as a man and a woman on a mission, a man and a woman with something to say, something to do, a man and a woman with a plan of action, and not just this rebellious teenager who's going through the rebellious phase. Because the rebel is youthful, passionate, energetic, but some people can also see it as rebellious phase. You're going to move out of it. So it is very important that if you do embody the rebel archetype, to also pair with the sage, masculine component or the feminine component, or the mystic, which is a feminine component, or the hermit, which is the masculine component of another archetype. I guess we're just going to talk about it since I already introduced them. So next up, we have the mystic and the hermit. And these are the archetypes for most people who consider themselves as outcasts. They are the edge of society. They're on the outward prowl. This is also the archetype of the old wise man and the old wise woman. These archetypes are very introspective. They're more focused on themselves, the soul mission. Sometimes they can be focused on the connection of how stuff are happening, but they're more introspective and focused on themselves. It can be a bit reclusive at times, which we're kind of leaning into the dark side of this archetype, but these are the archetype of wisdom. And wisdom in this sense is not power. Wisdom in this sense is from experience, not from the knowledge aspect like the sage who's more into reading articles, reading books, and being knowledgeable. This is wisdom from experience, and sometimes wisdom from an internal knowing. I think it's called clear cognizance. I'm not sure, but yes, that thing, the clear cognizance, the people who just know, they have this internal knowing of how stuff are happening. They may not know how to fully explain it, but they just have this. And this is also a good archetype to pair with a sage if you're trying to get your word across, because mystics and hermits, they just know stuff and they just see stuff on a different level that the other archetypes are not about to know. If you resonate with being a mystic or hermit, if you resonate with being a medium, tarot reader, all those stuff, you probably have this archetype active in you. It's more of a archetype that is of the outcast, that society might even demonize its archetype as being you're practicing stuff that are not of God. Funny enough, most religious leaders do embody the mystic and the hermit archetype, but because they follow a religion that society has deemed acceptable, they're more revered, whereas other people who also embody this mystic and hermit archetype that do not follow the religion that society has deemed acceptable are outcasted. But then again, if you take Christianity as an example, Christianity as a religion was outcasted before it was revered. So this is that archetype, okay? They're more of, I guess, the wolves in society. If you consider yourself a wolf, like a mystic or hermit, very introspective, very focused on their purpose here. It's a very focused archetype, very focused on their purpose. So the last archetypes that are in the world, since we're talking about isolation with the mystic, the last archetype is more so about connection. Connecting to your neighbors, connecting to your friends, and connecting to your lover. This is the lover archetype, which is the feminine component, as well as the artist. Now, I really want to put a big star here. When I say the artist, I don't mean you're an entertainer, you have this archetype active. I just mean the aspect of the artist that connects to the audience, the aspect of the artist that connects to the people who follow them, the aspect of the artist that is able to put together a song, a poem, a film to tell their life stories, to tell that connection. It's usually love based, okay? I'm trying to make it not seem love based, but it's usually love based. And the same with the lover, which is a girl, or anyone who considers themselves a true lover girl, not just someone who says they are. They have this immense desire to connect to other people, to connect to other men and women, to form that relational bond, however that is. All right. They have that immense desire to just connect to the stuff around them, find the connection between whatever is happening. Yes, it can be physical, yes, it can be mental, and yes, sometimes this can also be spiritual. But these are big connection archetypes. They want to connect to other people. They're very open, they can be very fun, but they are also very vulnerable, and that vulnerability, of course, can be attractive, but at the same sense, if you're being vulnerable with someone who does not have the best intention for you, it can eventually stab you in the back. But yeah, so those are, I hope that's all of them. I hope I went through all of them. I think I did. So those are all the 8 archetypes I'm going to delve on in the next video. Please let me know what you thought of this video. Give this video a like. If you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. And if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform, then please give me a 5-star review, 5-star only. And I'll see you next week. Bye.